treble clef and notes on the staff. What you're probably thinking is, why are there letters in music? We don't like letters in math, but guess what? They're also in music. When we talked about in a previous video, notes are all assigned a letter name. This is where we're going to learn about that. In music, we use the first 7 letters of the alphabet in music. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the only 7 letters we ever use. The next thing we're going to talk about is the treble clef. In music, there's always a clef assigned to the music. The clef is what tells you which notes go where on the staff. This is what a treble clef looks like. We draw a line through the staff, circles around, just like that. This is our treble clef. It is also known as the G clef. That may seem kind of confusing now, but it'll make sense later as you become more familiar with how to read music. The reason it is called the G clef is because this bottom part circles around line 2. Line 2 in treble clef is where the note G goes. So that's why it's called the treble clef, or known as the G clef. One way I help my students understand, or an easy way to remember that violinists, we play in the treble clef, is as violinists, we are always getting ourselves into trouble. So therefore we play the treble clef. It sounds a lot like treble, which we all are. Now we're going to go through and learn where these letters come into play with our notes on the staff. So let's start down here on line 1. I am just going to start with the lines. Now remember, on our staff we have 5 lines and 4 spaces. So we're going to start off learning the 5 lines. So I'm going to draw out my notes, which are my oval shaped symbols that we've learned about. Just like that. There's a fun saying that we use to kind of help us remember the names of the lines. This is how it goes. I'm going to write the letters below. So we have every good boy does fine. So the lines' names are E, G, B, D, and F. So our saying again is every good boy does fine. That's not too hard. Now let's do the spaces. In my opinion, the spaces are a little easier to learn. Now remember, there's 4 spaces on our staff. So I'm going to put my notes here. When we have our notes on the spaces, these are the letters that go along with it. F, A, C, and E. What word does that spell? Face. So when you're trying to remember the names of the spaces, it's the word face. F, A, C, and E. Not too hard. Now let's go over the lines one more time. E, G, B, D, F. Do you remember our saying? Every good boy does fine. If you can at least remember that we start on an E, here's another easy way to help you remember where the notes go. I'm going to erase these to help kind of illustrate it a little better. In the alphabet, in music, we go like this. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we start right back at A. Because there's no other letters after G, so we just start over. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so on and so forth. So if I'm starting at an E, what comes after E in the alphabet? F. Okay, let's see if this system works. Do you remember the names of our spaces? It was the word face. F-A-C-E. That's right. So we have E, F. What comes after F? G. And we already learned this one, because remember, it's the G clef. It circles the G. So we know this is G. Here we have A, because we start over after G. Then we go to B. We have C, D, E, and F. Our alphabet just keeps going over and over. It does continue above the staff and below the staff, but we'll talk about that later in a different video. What we need to take out of this video is remembering that we only use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, A through G. Each letter is assigned to a note. When we are in the treble clef, or the treble clef for violinists, we need to remember that G is always on the second line. And remember, we always count from the bottom going to the top. So 1, 2, there's G. So if you're trying to remember, this is the one note you always want to remember in your head. When you think treble clef, think it's also the G clef. And remember at the bottom, it circles that G for you. So that's a good key note to remember, just to keep it in your mind, thinking, okay, I don't remember where the names are, and I can't remember where all the notes are, but I remember where G is. And if you remember where G is, you just need to remember your alphabet. G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And go backwards, G, F, E. One more time, I want to go over the clever phrases that we came up with to memorize the lines and the spaces. If you remember, we had E, G, B, and D, and F for our lines. Do you remember what that saying was? Every good boy does fine. That's not too hard. And then for the spaces, it was that one clever word. Anyone remember? F, A, C, and E. We spelled the word face. Better pick my oval there. Face. Not too hard. Again, if anyone has questions, just comment below or shoot me a message and I'm happy to get back with you and elaborate or explain it differently. See you in the next video.